first met John Savage as a young student at the College of St. Rose. We were both working toward our bachelor's in music education at the time, and I immediately realized John was a gifted and soulful sax player with what I consider an inborn talent for getting music across to an audience. John hails from Gloversville, New York, where he still is, and today is a public school music teacher in that public school, as well as doing many other things in regards to his musical career. John's performance adventures include work with Bob Mintzer with the College of St. Rose Jazz Ensemble, The Drifters, Dennis Yost, Ben E. King, Out of the Box, The Refrigerators, New York Players, Grand Central Station, 10 Most Wanted, Alex Torres, The Accents, The Burners UK, Night Train, Clean Street, and he also has his very own jazz fusion group that he keeps quite busy. I had the good fortune to have John contribute his saxophone talents and horn arranging skills to my own CDs like Whiskey on Ice and Let's Get Away. Besides playing on many other musicians' recordings, John's own personal collection of albums that he's recorded include A Brighter Day in 1999, Through It All 2003, Live at the Cafe 2005, Winter Songs 2005, Life Stories 2013. And I am sure John will be producing a lot more music for us in the future. Today we'll be listening to two of John's recordings, The Hunter and Through It All, a very soulful and wonderful song, deserving of some vocals perhaps one day. After the listening, stay with us here at Empire Radio Sounds for an in-depth interview with John Savage. Hello, John Savage. I'm really happy to have you here on Empire Radio Sound. So thank you for sharing your music with us and your time with us.
Thank you,
Um,
Marcus. I'm very honored to be here, man. Thanks for
well,
asking.
this is you were one of my top cats I had to get on right away.
Oh, thank you,
so,
man. I'm flattered. Thank you.
well, that brings me to my first question because you're one of the guys who've been around for a while here, and I'm going to just read it off the sheet because
Sure.
I can't act it out. Obviously, you're a long track record as a saxophonist in our 518 area. Within that role, you've covered a lot of different styles of music. So, what would be your advice to a young and upcoming saxophonist regarding two things, both what they should do musically, but also their working relationships with other musicians? It's a two-part question.
Well, the first part of it, I just what I try to tell the kids too is that don't limit yourself. Make sure that you're trying to get your head around a lot of different things, and it's a process. I mean, it's just we all started out listening to things that we enjoyed and liked, and that's what got us hooked. And then
Mm,
you do have to branch out from there. You don't want to be a one trick pony,
right.
even though it seems like, I guess, the guys that we've listened to and do listen to, and that's their style, but they do a lot of different things. And I guess being able to play in as many genres as you can and understand the role of the instrument in those is paramount, I think, in order to be able to work. If you can do, if you're great at playing in sections and doing the rock thing, that's great, and but that's going to limit you just to that. And if you can hang and do all the other stuff too and get into even including classical music,
Right.
which my first taste of it, as you remember, was college, with Paul Ivaskovich. And
Yeah.
I had no idea that back then that a saxophone really could play in that genre, and I fell in love with
Right.
it over so many years.
Hmm.
But it's very so be as versatile as you can and try to make sure that at least the basic ins and outs of the style that you're going to be playing in, so that you can adequately serve the music.
Yeah, I like that.
um
For part two of our question.
yeah, as far as just try to be a good hang. I mean, in order to make music with people, it's a hanging thing. It's a relationship thing. And we've all played with those guys that come off with some attitude, and they're hard to work with. You want to be able
Yeah.
to, we have to have a level of trust with each other on the stage, on the bandstand, whatever.
Right.
And in order to accomplish that, you've got to be open to whatever's going on, and try to leave. Everybody's got things going on in their own lives, and that you
Right.
got to try to leave that stuff there and just let the music be your primary focus and goal when you're on stage.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I completely concur with both those opinions. Kind of along the same lines, when you're the leader of the group, what do you look for in the musicians that you hire?
Uh, Creativity, I guess, is the main thing. I remember when the first time I had a guy filling in for my gig. They were really studying the pre-recorded stuff, that we already had laid out,
Mhm.
and they were going to try to make that as close as possible. And I said to him, I'd rather you not. I want to hear your interpretation of it.
Right.
That
Yeah.
that's more important to me. I asked you to play because I like how you play, and I
Nice.
want to hear how you approach the stuff, and that's going to even make it more fresh for me. I mean, even though I
Nice.
recorded the tunes and that years ago or whatever, I want to hear somebody's take on it and make it more exciting and interesting for myself as well.
Right.
And I guess that sense of adventure and being able to be free and just put themselves into it. I want to hear what they have to say about it within the constructs of the chord changes and the form, but maybe even the form sometimes can be altered on stage,
Oh
which we've
yeah.
done those times,
Yeah, we
which is
have.
by accident and on purpose. So,
Yeah. Well,
but
I like that.
that's the deal, really, is for me, is
Yeah.
that I just want to, those, I want to hear how they take it. And maybe if it's a drummer, maybe the groove's different. Maybe they hear a different groove going on. And, so
Uh-huh.
that's what makes it
Okay.
exciting. And that's what I look for guys to play with, and especially in my stuff anyway. So,
Right. Oh, good. I completely agree. and especially when it doesn't go as planned. You really need
Yes.
something that's very creative, you know. So I'm going to get to our song here. The first one is The Hunter that I wanted to review tonight. And
Cool.
thank you for sharing that. And we get to hear you play in the iwi, or the electric wind instrument. Could you briefly explain a little bit about this instrument and the opportunities and challenges that it poses? Because I think a lot of people are not really aware.
Sure. Well, I got into the wind synthesis stuff back when I first got to college in fall of '88, and they had a Yamaha WX7 lying around,
Oh, yeah.
and I was able to play a little bit with that and explore with that. And
Yes.
so that was the start. That was I still have that, actually. When I bought one, and I still have that around, kicking around somewhere. That one has not been sold off, or so. But so that was my first take in it, and I like the possibilities of it for another melody instrument. I know a lot of guys that use it and had used it for playing, string pads or horn
Yeah.
parts or whatever. But to me, it was a chance to have another voice. I fell in love with the sound of the old Lyricons back in the
Oh,
day,
yeah. Yeah.
and I was never played one in my life, which I would love to someday put my hands on one if
I've never
I
even
could find
seen
one.
one.
Yeah, I actually have an ad, copy of an ad hanging in my office at school.
Oh,
That
yeah.
from
From
It has
Downbeat or
some long
something,
haired guy, looks like looks like Lou Marini, you
huh?
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he has a nice caricature ad here, and it was kind of cool. But so fast forward to 2007, and I bought my first iwi when they had created them with the sounds internally. Usually I'd have to
Right.
carry around a module. It had all the sounds in it,
Uh-huh.
and just as things got, as myself got older, and just tired of hauling around a bunch of stuff and plugging things in. So battery operated, it had all the sounds internally, and so it was just plug and play. And but the thing is, what's different about that is the keys on it are not keys, they're sensors. So
Right.
the learning curve on that was a little bit something. It took me a few months to try to get, and even after that, making, those little mistakes of, finger glitches and whatnot. And it
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
happens even to this day, no matter how much you practice it. It can get temperamental. It doesn't like humidity. I found that out over years.
Okay.
It's not a big fan of humidity. Neither am I, but it's that in particular, it'll get glitchy with that. But
Yeah.
I fell in love with it. The expressiveness of it, and being able to, and I don't use it to, make it mock a clarinet or anything like that. I use it for
Right.
the analog synth sounds,
Yeah.
and use it as a separate voice. And
Yeah.
it's just took a little while to get used to the setup of it. And but my sounds are done. There's a guy, Matt Traum, who's out in the Midwest, and he's actually repaired my iwi a couple of times.
Okay.
And even back when I had the Yamaha, I bought his sound bank for the module that I had. And
Okay.
so I have his sound bank, one of his sound banks for the iwi, which it takes it another level. He's awesome, and the expressiveness that you're able to get out of it. So,
Hmm.
but
Nice.
it's just another voice. And even in my writing, I hear things, to use it for, as far as a melody instrument. That's kind of where
Right.
I'm at with it. And um, it's been a nice little addition that I've just enjoyed, over the years, to explore and play with, and gives you almost like that feeling of being a guitar player a little bit, which is all, everybody's a little classic guitar player in them. So, and being able to do those types of things and
Yeah.
sounds and that. And I know that's something that I think, just reading Michael Brecker's biography by Bill Mikowski, that he was
Right.
into that as well. The use of the instrument, it made him kind of feel like he was a guitar player, from what Mikowski had said. So,
Yeah, well, and then he, he emulated and even quoted some Jimi Hendrix now and then.
oh yes,
Mike
yeah,
Brecker did, and so I appreciate that. And it really works well in this particular song. I'd like to add,
thank you,
it's
thank
the
you.
right instrument for the melody. So to my next question, and I love the fusion rock funk underlying groove to this song. Typically, when there's a heavy funk or rock influence, the harmony kind of stays static. That is around one tonal center. When you approach that sort of one chord type of groove or harmony, what sort of techniques or musical ideas do you use to make an improvised solo interesting? Because there's not going to be much chordal movement.
it's just I tend to approach it more rhythmically, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Try to explore
Okay.
more things rhythmically,
Okay.
and trying to be almost another part of the rhythm section, I guess you could say at that point, and interacting more with what's going on there. Being real open to what's going on with the drummer, and especially if you have a drummer who's very, creative and,
Yeah. Yeah.
knows how to work those types of grooves. That makes it a lot easier too. We can have more of a conversation with the rhythm
Yeah.
section that
I
way,
like that. Yeah.
being part of that. So that's kind of where um, it's a lot of, I mean, you can get into doing a little more playing outside because
Yeah.
there's not a lot constraining you to be inside.
Right.
Knowing how to work, be a little bit outside of things, and it's where you can get into your altered scales and your, half diminished and all those things, and employing those gives you that opportunity for that. I think more of that than trying to
Yeah.
fit them in a situation where you have a lot of chords going on, a lot of chordal movement. So
Yeah. I have found in those situations, the trick to playing outside is you got to land inside somewhere.
absolutely.
Because if you don't, you can paint yourself into a corner,
Oh,
But
done it a number of times. Yes.
yeah. But when I first
Why did I
heard,
take that? Why did I take that third chorus? Oh my goodness.
yeah, yeah, it's like eating or
There was
drinking too
there was no
much.
there was no redemption found there.
Yeah, I hear you there, man. Um, did you record this song, The Hunter? Did you record at a studio with everybody present there, or did you do it track by track? And then, secondly, how do you view track by track recording as opposed to everybody in the studio at the same time?
This was a track by track thing. The rhythm section tracks were done a long time, probably a year before I laid anything else down to it.
Okay.
And then most of the other tracks, with the exception of the guitar, were me. I did the keyboard work, the tenor part, the Iwi part, and the solos and all that. But the bass and the drums were done, probably I would say at least 6 months to a year beforehand, and then I was able to get around to working on completing tunes in that project.
Right.
So that whole album was done piecemeal. I have done stuff where it's been everybody all together, or at least the majority of the rhythm section, and then I would go back and redo my tracks,
Uh-huh.
um, to enable it to fine tune things. But that has been the process for a lot of stuff for over the years. But I'm really becoming more of a person interested in doing things in a live setting, and the older I get, I guess, and
Yeah.
more, I guess, confident, I guess, maybe in things and in myself,
Hmm.
and learning to live with even the minutest of mistakes.
Sure.
So in things that I'm working on now, we're toying with the idea of doing things totally live, where we do a couple of takes and that's the way it goes, and
Yeah.
little editing is possible. And so, but that one in particular was done track by track, and just, you know, sitting down, and after I had the
Uh-huh.
bass and the drums down, then had a couple of takes of those and went from there. So,
Yeah. Well, it definitely still maintains a lot of excitement. Um, so then on your song, I'm going to move on to the next song, and this is the song Through It All. And the music, even without words, evokes the title. In other words, one can easily visualize a story of two people facing the challenges together, of life together. Would I be correct in that, or am I just projecting my own, because it's an instrumental take, but I could easily hear some words to it,
yeah,
or a
you're
story.
absolutely right. Absolutely right. That was a tune I had written for my wife, before she was my wife. And
Okay.
then actually we had that as our wedding song, actually, when we got
Really
married.
nice.
Yeah.
Very
And,
nice. Well, that
but
puts another touch to the story.
yep, and that's pretty much the the idea behind it. In fact, yep, a lot of times in my writing, if the title will actually be like the hook of the song, especially in maybe a
Yeah.
ballad,
Okay, that's
that it
interesting.
can be singable. That's kind of how I approach it, and in that I like to,
Right. Even though
I,
it's instrumental.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like to be able that you can, there's something to make you feel like you want to sing it.
Well, would you
But
ever put words to it or have
you know,
somebody put
I
words to
tried
it?
to actually. I've picked and played around with it a little bit, and
Yeah.
over the years, nothing official and nothing, you know,
Okay.
concrete yet. But I have done some tooling around in the car when I've listened
Cool.
back to it once in a while, and
Nice.
I thought about some things. But yeah, if somebody wanted to someday, that'd be great. You know, I would love
Well,
to, you know, hear somebody's, you know,
we got a lot of
idea.
talented singers in the area,
We
you
do,
know.
we do indeed.
But yeah, that song screams for it, in my opinion. Well, in listening to my, that brings me to my next question about this same song, actually. But I could say it. I've heard you play it a lot, and you're a very soulful sax player. Okay.
Thank you.
And my next question, in listening to this soulful style of tenor sax play, and it comes shining through, this particular soulful way of performing has a long American musical tradition going to gospel music and, from the South. What is it, do you think, that makes this thing we call soulful or gospel or blues uh, that reaches a listener's emotions?
I think because like you said, the word is soul. I think it's playing, trying to get into playing from that place and opening up yourself to expressing those emotions. I mean, my my favorite players, and it doesn't matter what style that they're playing in or instrument that they're playing in, you can hear the depths of what's inside them when they're playing, especially when they're improvising and they're taking all that, whether it's joy, sadness,
Uh-huh.
grief, whatever it is, and they're channeling those emotions that they've experienced into that moment in the performance, whether it's a recorded performance, a live performance. Um, I think that is those styles of music, especially, lend themselves to that. Where again, we're back to singing. You
Yeah.
know, my humble opinion, our instrument is so close to a human voice
Yeah.
that you're almost forced you're to approach it in that way,
Yeah.
you know, to
Yeah.
do it effectively. And you know, I spent a lot of time not just, you know, playing to sax players, but playing to singers, you know, playing along with recordings where I'm playing and getting those inflections. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's pop stuff. It's, you
Yeah.
know, it's R&B stuff. And I think the guys and gals that can do that, you know, and take that and also allow themselves to take off the mask, I guess, or, you know, not, or allow their emotions to come out. I think
Yeah.
that's where it gets to be more exciting playing, and where it really gets to the heart and the listener.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. My earliest memories of even making me want to play the saxophone. I go back to the 1950s, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I was a little boy, and but you know, in the 50s, tenor sax was king on pop records, you
Yep.
know. And I don't know who I heard at the time, but boy, the first time I heard it, and I just knew
Yep.
that's something I got to do.
Yep. I was
Um,
hooked. Yep.
yeah, it's a, you know, I know we're prejudiced, but the tenor sax is just a beautiful, beautiful
Oh
instrument.
yeah. Yep.
That's just it
It
just
has
grabs you.
its own thing, man.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the rest of them are just beautiful too when played well. And
Right.
but there's just something about that. There's a in that sonority, that register, that
Yeah,
just,
that's it. The sonority.
yeah, it just really
Yeah.
grabs people, I think, and lends itself to you've got a wider range almost, I think, especially if you go into the altissimo and
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
utilize that effectively. You've got, you know, so many possibilities that it
Yeah.
just, you know,
Yep.
that doesn't get, I think, great on the ear so much. Um, it just, to me, I know from having played alto for many years too, and still do on occasion, you get up into that upper register and it can get screechy,
Yeah.
and it can be exciting, but it also can be like a little bit, but up in that altissimo register on the tenor, you're approaching into the alto, you know, mid range.
Yeah.
I think that just, you know, adds to a point of excitement, but it also
Yep.
can have that subtle beauty to it down low with the subtone, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it
Yeah.
just, you know,
Incredible instrument.
it is.
Um, so do you have any composing or recording projects in the works right now planned for the future?
always writing something.
I know
Always
you
got, I
are,
got
but
bits of paper all over the place. I still use pencil and paper. That's
me
never
too.
going
Yeah,
away.
yeah. I start there and then take it from
Yep.
there. Yeah.
I do have,
It's
things on the iPad now that I've, been able to, use for scratch things, writing things down, digitally, and
right.
it works great. But I'm still a paper and pencil guy with that physical eraser and doing the, cross
Yeah,
outs and
yeah.
but yeah, there's always something, and I've got like a list of things. I'm trying to refine some things. There's stuff that we've been playing out for a few years now that we've been dying to get together and record, and
Right.
a lot of things have sidetracked that, whether it be just time or now the pandemic and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So we've kind of been but I even thought about earlier on this year to even recording things live, um doing it that way at a gig, but it
Nice.
just became too cumbersome, and it was a time where trying, I know myself, I was trying to get my playing bed together, having
Yeah.
that time away from not doing it was, you could practice all you want. Gig dexterity, the gig air, gig, intensity isn't,
Uh-huh.
you can't practice that unless you're gigging.
No, no, no.
So it's a little bit worrisome. So I was like, yeah, let's wait until I can get my stuff together again. And then, so
It's
it's on the
interesting.
list, and I definitely know that, we're ready to go with it as soon as I pull the trigger. But
Oh, good.
it shouldn't be too hard, because this, like I said, we've been playing some of this stuff for 3-4 years now
Yeah,
that
well,
it's all ready to go. It's just a matter of let's do it. So
yeah,
so
cool. Well, I'm
hopefully
looking
soon.
forward to that for sure.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, but as soon as record the stuff, then I can open up then space opens up for more stuff. I feel like I've got to, you
I
got to do a
like
little
that.
bit, play it a little bit, get it out there,
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
Okay, then I got room to concentrate on the other things that are coming in that I'm writing bits and pieces down of. So
Well, like you said, it's a process, and,
it
and it,
is. Yep.
it's beautiful things. It never stops,
Yes. Yep. And I
There's a
get more
lot.
picky with things of course, as I get older too.
Yeah,
It's like the more I listen to things, and one of the cool things, I do a lot of the post production stuff too myself,
right.
and um, listening to stuff on my headphones walking the dog at night, and
Uh-huh.
I'll listen intently to what's going on with mixes and hearing placement of instruments now, and that, and so I've really been studying that on my time walking the dog, trying to
Sure.
catalog that stuff, going, well, I think maybe if I put this over here, and gee, what, the piano's hard to the right or whatever, and so trying to pay attention to that as well. But just listening to other ideas, and how things are put together, and it really makes me think more about the, not just writing the tune. Now it's even more so deeper about the arrangement and what needs to be there, what doesn't need to be there. And I think
Nice. Yeah.
more so it's what doesn't need to be there, rather than what can I,
Yeah.
how much can I throw in this kitchen sink thing,
Right.
and that's like, oh, you don't need the kitchen sink. It needs just this,
Right.
so
Right. There's nothing
being
wrong
more
with that.
selective, and the patience involved, I guess, is something that's acquired, I guess, over time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, John, it's been a pleasure having you here, and I want to especially thank you for helping me out with my little pet project here, Empire Radio
Pleasure.
Sounds. And the last question I'm going to leave you with, because I have a lot of respect for you, and you've been on the scene
Likewise.
for quite a while. Um, and that would be, is there any observation about our 518 area, the Capital District, for music that you would like to share with us?
I think that it's such a wonderful place, and a lot of talented people here that, everybody thinks that you got to be from a big city or have been to the big city and been here, and whether it be New York or Boston or Nashville or LA, and there's so much great stuff going here just in this area that I think it would amaze people, and I think it does amaze people when they do come here, especially like, you've played track season and all that in
Oh, yeah.
Saratoga, and you've got people from all over the world that have come
Yeah.
here for track season, and you'll get people go, I never realized that this was here, And it's
Yeah.
almost like it's a secret, but it really isn't. I mean, if people just, they had this preconceived notion that it's all, in these bigger places and that's where it is. And that's what, but I think that we've got is some incredible, world altering musicians here that have put in the dedication and the hard work. And
Yeah.
honest to God, are making the same money that somebody's making at a club in New York. It's going a lot farther.
Yep. When you hear
And
the war stories of those that
right,
go down,
it's
yeah.
that $75 is going a lot farther here than it is down in the city.
So true, and I completely agree with everything you've just said about our area. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do this. Actually, I was on a trip in New York City, and it hit me on the train on the way back. This would be a great idea. Why don't we give our people starting here and beyond a little bit of airplay or exposure, because I feel the same way. There is so many in all different genres. I mean, I've been playing this area on and off since the early 1970s, and I'm still working. And sometimes I can't believe it, that I can still doing gigs and getting paid all these years later, one
Yeah,
venue or another. But John, I really appreciate you being with us. And of course, I
thank you,
want to
Mark.
have you back somewhere up in the future, and we'll have some
Love it.
new things to talk about.
Absolutely.
Okay. And
Absolutely. Thank you, Marcus. And thanks for
yeah,
having me with this. And I love you, man. This is, it's been great. It's
likewise.
always been, I'm just so thankful and grateful to play with you whenever we get a chance to.
Oh,
And
yeah, we've
love
had a
making
lot of
music with
fun.
you. You're one of my favorite people to make music with, man, because you get it. You understand. So
Well, thank you much, brother. I appreciate it. And happy gigging.
thank you. You too.
All right.
This is Marcus Benoit, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode from Empire Radio Sounds, where we do weekly and monthly features of songs and artists from the 518 area and beyond. Support local musicians and be most excellent to each other.